Chris Jasin, I'm one of the founders of New Debate. I'm also one of the advisors for New Debate. I'm a career intelligence officer. I had a 3-decade career in both the United States military and the Central Intelligence Agency. Intelligence at its heart is we're storytellers. So we are the ones that go out there and in military parlance, we try to find out the story that's left the boom, that happens before an action takes place. So it's gathering facts to create a narrative to then deliver to a decision maker so they can make an informed decision about what they need to do, where they need to place resources, again, before something happens. Being in the CIA is hands down the coolest job you can ever have in the world. I miss it every day. I'm very thankful for the opportunity to have been able to serve in that way, but I'm also exceptionally happy with what it is that I'm doing now. There are many different parts of the organization. The part that I grew up in was called the Director of Operations, so that's probably the more traditional vision of what most people think of the CIA. As a case officer, my job was to go out and spot, assess, develop, recruit human beings, carry on conversations with people that I may have never met before. But there is that analytical component that does what we call the 50-pound brain, the people that do look at the issues, and not only the issues of the day, but they're trying to determine what are the issues of tomorrow. With various levels of resourcing. And you may have an analyst who says, hey, this is the absolute issue of tomorrow, but for whatever reason, there are other things going on. That's not the issue that's going to catch everybody's attention for the day until you have that catalyst of change. Then all of a sudden, that analyst just became very important, and they may be the world's foremost authority on whatever that issue is in some part of the world. But now, all of a sudden, you get everybody surging to that part of the world to take care of that issue. The challenge becomes who's got the best crystal ball, who can see what the issues of tomorrow are. Fortunately, we have a number of very bright people that continue to look at that. We're so inundated, no matter where you are in the world. You can go to some of the most remote places on the planet with indigenous people who all have a cell phone in their hand, okay? And most of them have a smartphone. So that means they have access to the same things that we have access to, right? And it's just this constant barrage of information that we all quickly use to form our opinion, our basis of what it is that we think, what it is that we support. And so the amount of misinformation that's out there, you may think the government is good, but you get all this information that, no, the government is bad. Or vice versa, right? And so the ability to convey accurate information to people in a way that you're sharing that information with them rather than telling them what it is that they should think, which is too much of what we do right now. I think that is certainly a challenging issue and will be going forward. You can look at what's going on in the Ukraine right now with the ghost of Kiev and some of these other, fantastical stories that came out very early on, which everybody wanted to be true, and it would be so cool if they were, but they weren't, right? And so we accuse them, whoever they are, of propaganda bad, but yet, here we are kind of doing the same thing. So it's how do you get accurate information out to people so that they can decide for themselves what it is that they believe and what it is that they want. Journalists fulfill a role. That's fantastic. Again, a case officer is not that different from a journalist. We both recruit sources to get information to tell stories. It's just the stories that I told, which are intelligence reports, need to be as absolutely unbiased as possible, not leaning one way or the other. It's the quickest career ender in the world is if you try to put that spin on it in some way, whereas a journalist is going to recruit sources to develop a story to perhaps, not always, but to perhaps advance a narrative, whether that's their publisher's narrative or their own personal narrative if they're an independent journalist of some kind. Or maybe that's simply where the money is, right? If you write and that's not what sells magazines, then nobody's going to buy your article. But if you write the opposite of that, then all of a sudden everybody wants it. It needs to go back to that unemotional kind of fact-based, doesn't have to be boring. You can still do these incredible stories. And some of the stories that New Debate wants to tell. You can tell those stories, but you present them in a way that is, again, very factually based and not where you're telling somebody what they must think, and worse, that if you don't think like I do, that you're wrong. It's just like, no, here's the story. And I think that will start to draw people in. I think, I think there's a level of fatigue out there that many people, more and more each day, are starting to crave that calmness and that that return to something other than what it is. They're tired of the conflict. The political discourse and political spectrum in this country, in the United States, is exceptionally polarized at the moment. In school, when you learn about it, it comes across as a very linear thing, which would mean that the far left and the far right are as opposite of each other as they can possibly get. I think that's probably more of a circle, so that the far left and the far right, the really extremes of both sides, are probably closer together than they are apart. Now, that doesn't mean they're ever going to agree, and it doesn't mean that they're united in any way. It just means that their belief systems and the way that they act on those belief systems are probably a lot closer together than where the vast majority of us are or naturally gravitate, which is towards the middle. We're just in a time and a place, for a variety of different reasons, where, again, that's the boring spot. That doesn't make the news cycle. That doesn't generate likes or interest in articles. But I think the vast preponderance of people, if they knew what those terms actually meant, they looked it up online, they're like, oh yeah, no, I absolutely believe in that. I think most people, if they hear the word liberal, are going to be like, oh my goodness, no, I don't identify with that at all. It's like, okay, well, go look it up, find out what the definition is, and I think you'll find, no, absolutely, I do believe in that. We now have a generation coming of age that grew up in this mass media world where all they know is likes and over-the-top hyperbole and all this crazy stuff, and they need to be shown that, hey, there's another way. And I think a lot of those ideals rest in that sweet spot of this is what normal is supposed to be like. There needs to be a voice that says it's okay to feel this way. You don't have to be over the top with your political discourse. You don't have to be over the top with your belief system. It's okay to just be and exist in this place and understand, again, if somebody doesn't feel the same way you do, it doesn't make them the enemy. It just means that they feel differently than you do. For me, the way that it started in a war zone many years ago, having conversations about all the cool experiences and the crazy stories and things that we've talked about, and Matt Dreher and I had similar backgrounds in terms of like the movies that we watched as kids and the experiences that we had as an adults. It's like, oh, that would be a really cool story. Hey, do you remember this movie or this kind of thing? And knowing full well that a lot of the experiences and stories that we have in the memory banks can never be told, which is a shame because there's some good ones out there that do need to be told. But we definitely shared that commonality, that common experience. We shared a same belief system for the most part, not completely lined up, and other people in this room can validate that we're not completely lined up, in terms of how we approach the world, how we approach other people. And again, that's okay, because it would be a boring place if we all agreed about everything that it was that we ever engaged in. That's not how the world works. But as the ideas started to kind of gel and come together, it's like, that's exactly what is needed, because certainly in the places that I've been to in the world, the places that Matt's been into in the world, there's this whoever gets there first wins narrative. So whoever gets the information out first, regardless of how wrong it might be, wins. And the United States, for a lot of very good reasons, does very poorly at that, about getting the narrative out there. We always seem to respond to the narrative that's out there. So we're always at an immediate disadvantage because our adversaries get the narrative out there first. Ooh, America bad. Ooh, America did this thing. So now we're responding to that versus saying, hey, here's the thing that America did. Here's why we did it. And so take that same model with New Debate and take these flashpoint topics, again, that are so divisive across the world, and address them unemotionally with fact, with scholars who have studied these things for, in some cases, maybe decades, who say, hey, here's an alternative, or here are the real facts of this case, or of this situation. Make your own decision.